this week. I've got this boom mic with a, I got it basically like a lamp stand for my microphone, which has a pop protector on it. Not that I really have much of a problem with too much popping, but yes, good to see you all. Lots of updates this week. Actually, just occurred to me I need to change the battery on this so it does not go into battery mode too quickly. So let me, I did this the wrong way around, didn't I? I should stop mirroring for a second, so give me a second there. And battery, just because I just noticed it was instantly sort of going into sleep mode. How is everybody? Sorry, it's always a little bit late. Battery. Turn off low power mode and back into mirroring. Boom. Oops. And we are there. Well, so much going on at the moment, but first of all, hello to everybody watching. I see we've got actually got some new names there in the comment, which is exciting to have. So Tai Nakamura, how am I doing on that track remix? Well, I'm about to talk about that. The Japan Dude, hello to you. James Kelly, hi. Tai Nakamura, indeed. Shazam from Sergeant Bilko, boom, we've got there in the icon speech. We've got Quentin Rankid. You assume you're not experiencing technical difficulties? No, not right at the moment, although I've got technical difficulty stories. Yeah, I was a bit worried with the new mic setup that I'd do something wrong and I'd have like no sound this week, but so far so good. Mary Lagos, good to see you. Tokyo 503, bonsoir. Tokyo 503 in the room, good to see you, waving right back at you. We've got Martin Orlando, hello from New Jersey, USA, good to see you. I actually work with someone from New Jersey, and yes, actually, always fun talking with them. And the J-Vlog, salutations, good to see you all. So much stuff going on at the moment. The first thing, the big news is the MyChan TV is launched. It's live. I've started pushing the explainer more, and I've been actually meaning to do a bit of a campaign around it now. Particularly the exciting thing is that the pro version of it, basically where we are starting to offer features in addition to the free features that already work for the entire site, which is basically just this thing. If you're like me, I've got like 500 subscriptions, and I've got like MMA stuff. I've got stuff which floods my feed and makes it really hard to see. On Monday morning, I want to catch up with Philip DeFranco. I want to catch up with Hot Ones. I want to catch up with videos that my favorite J-vloggers have been making. I've been watching Rhyming Gaijin like every day lately. He's been doing like a freestyle rap every day. I always like download those, but when I'm on Wi-Fi at home and I watch them on the train, it's the best thing about premium that I am using for YouTube. Yeah, it's basically, whereas when I get home at night and I want to watch MMA while I'm, chilling out a bit or whatever, or when I catch up on rugby, I actually use my Chan bundles to be able to watch what I want to watch music videos from my music channels, or sports videos from my sports channels, even play them in different monitors at the same time. It's really, really cool. So MyChan TV is live, and with the hope of now starting to have voluntary basis pro subscriptions for it, is I'd really love you guys, if you like what we're trying to do, to support us and let me to continue to develop it, because at the moment it's been a big investment to get going. I think it is cool and worthwhile. There's something there, and I would like to keep doing it, but I need you some support to continue. So that is what I'm asking for with that. The other things that I'm doing, hey, the J-Vlog, the 35-inch ultra-wide monitor arrived today. That's kind of exciting. I like that. Dan H, good to see you. I don't know if you're aiming that at, I see from the title. Well, they could be. You never know. The Oba-san, or the Oba-chan, keep an eye on them. Berenger, good evening to you. Good to see you. So what else is going on at the moment? Well, the first big thing is, again, I'm starting my campaign now. Actually, I started paying for Facebook boosting of the explainer video which I got made, which is just so good. It came out so well. I posted it on my channel, so hopefully most of you have seen it. It's only a minute long, and it's a really great video. And it includes basically how to use MyChan TV. So first is the launch of My Chan TV. Second thing is, on Thursday this week, I recorded a new season of Japan Business Time with Rochelle Kopp, Reiwa edition, the new series, based on the comments that you guys left. Thanks for everybody who left comments and supported the last season, and it gave us lots of good topics for the next season. That's where some of the technical difficulties came in. I thought every time I go to the YouTube space, I've always found when I use the really good cameras, there is I have the space for like 3 or 4 hours. I find I'm spending more than an hour setting up just because the cameras are so hard to get set up to work correctly, and packing up takes an hour as well. We end up, we think we're gonna have like record 2 hours but have like an hour to plan and be comfortable, and we end up always never with enough time to do what we want to do. So this time I thought I'd minimize the risk by taking all of my own equipment. I took 2 of my own cameras. I actually took 2 lap mics, one of which I bought just before I went out there, just to make sure the sound would be perfect, since it'll be like attached to our bodies, and I got a long extension cable for that and a splitter. So I thought I had everything covered, and I thought, worst case, I can use a second camera. So even if something should go wrong with the sound, I'll have 2 camera versions of it, so there'll be a backup if we have to switch to one of the cameras, and I'll have 2 versions of the sound, so it should be awesome. We recorded, and it did come out well. In fact, it's a great season, and I'm really looking forward to showing it to you guys. The problem is that I learned that when you use a lap mic with like a 6 meter long cable near a large radio antenna like Tokyo Tower, it causes crazy static on the line, and I actually found this out later when I researched into why it was happening. So the good news is that I had the backup sound from my second camera, which actually came out really nice. It was actually from a studio room, so I had coverage for that. The problem is that the second camera ran out of battery with about like 2 episodes to go. Hey, Tim the Asian Ink, good to see you. Welcome to the show. So it ended up just like for the last 20 minutes of a 2-hour recording session, but 2 episodes worth. The only sound that I have a great shot. It looks great. It's beautifully lit. The cameras are awesome. But the sound is just it's terrible. So I'm actually probably going to be asking the Tokyo Digital crew for some help, perhaps, on trying to figure out how to clean up that audio as much as possible. And no, it's not coax, Quentin Rankin. I actually just got the Rode. So Rode has this thing where they have these lap mics, and they actually, it's basically this. It looks like your regular headphone, except it's really long, but I learned later on that the length of these cables increases the static on them. I was warned by the staff at the YouTube space that using like wireless lap mics, which is what I wanted to switch to instead, they said you can't use it in that room because it's too close to Tokyo Tower, which is also a huge TV antenna, and it actually ruins the sound on the wireless mics. So every time I go there's always something. I guess I should just take my shotgun mics or something next time, because again, the in-camera mics worked really well, but still I do have a really good, and because it's on my own cameras, it is easier to edit, so I've got all the material. It should be relatively easy to cut. The conversation was good. It's just that final 20 minutes or so, I don't want to lose it. I want to figure if I can salvage it. But good news is that it is in the can. I don't know where I'm going to post it yet. I've got a few projects going on right now, including another project I'm about to talk to you guys about. But Tokyo Business Time is there. It's awesome. I'm also going to be speaking at another Rochelle event in Tokyo. So if you're in Tokyo or in Japan and able to come to Tokyo in June, the date isn't set yet, but I will be for an event associated with her book, which I left around here deliberately so I could show, but I put it away. Where is it? It's over there. Yes, so again, about working in Japan, so that's pretty cool. And yes, so that is coming. So lots of exciting stuff there. The other really exciting thing, so there's the launch of My Chan TV and the launch of My Chan TV Pro Tier, which I've been talking about for a while now, but it's launched and I'm starting to push it, and I really appreciate everyone's support here, spreading the word on that. Japan Business Time is coming. The other thing is that I think I mentioned that I was doing something very cool with the Tokyo Digital crew, and I've been in the thick of that. So Ty asked in the very beginning, first thing, how am I doing on that track remix? And stopping and start, I spent a lot of time on it yesterday, and I would have continued. I might have even finished it today, but the problem is I'm also trying to finish editing the first episode. And the thing is, the way that we're doing this is basically, I've been inspired by Andrew Huang and Machine Masters House of Beats series on YouTube. I thought this is something Given that we share tracks and we sometimes mix and collaborate on tracks together, I thought what a great format that we could actually do it like as a challenge, as a kind of friendly competition with no scoring or winners per se, but with the idea that everyone would be able to hear our mixes and say which one they like the best. And so we started this idea where one of us would make a track and would share the track with all the others. And we are taking turns remixing those tracks and then sharing them with one another. And it's pushing us to learn, and especially in my case, because I'm starting from probably a lot more of a basic place perhaps than the others in many respects. And so we set up a test of it just to get the whole template working. It is pretty complicated to actually show a track and to edit like 3 or 4 people reacting to it at the same time, and so make it all coherent into a video. It actually takes a really long time. I've been trying to make it into a template to do it faster, and it took me like 2 days to edit the first 3-minute reaction. That's how complicated it was. However, tonight, before I was being late for the show, I actually edited in about 3 hours the next 2 tracks. So it's coming together. I'm getting a system. And I gotta say, I mean, in all modesty, it's looking really awesome. And more than that, the music that everyone makes, you guys have to appreciate. Tainake there in the comments, and Mata Gaijinka, who comes into the comments, and Fogheart. These are pros. They make awesome stuff. And not only are we showing you awesome music and introducing it to you, but we're actually showing you how we made it. And we're sharing with you how we learn as we go along and how we get inspired by one another. And it's really, even just editing it, I would have given up on this a long time ago in the editing phase if it was one of just purely my own video, but it's exciting to watch for me. So it's like it's motivating, even though it's really painful to watch Tai Nakamura getting excited by a track by Mata Gaijinka and seeing all the lights going off and hearing Fog and Tai comparing notes and so on, and editing into a video where you can see it all at once. It's really cool, and I'm like, I want to do it really well. I'm spending time on it because it's like these guys did such awesome stuff, and I want to pull it together. I obviously want to do it faster, and I also want to figure out a good system for that. But right now I'm focusing on getting a good system on the editing of that, so that I can, so that I can then spend the time to focus on my first remix. I made the original track, which was used for the first episode, but I really want to switch over to providing the to remixing Ty's track, which I've started on. And you know what I lack, what I know that Fog, who's like a professional producer, Ty, who is a very talented producer, and you know, has a band and everything else, and Mata Gaijinka, who actually has blown us all away, is a professor, but at the same time actually is really great with caustic and makes this awesome music. You know, I'm sitting on my iPhone on the train, so I have to figure out other ways to compete, but that's what creativity is. It's feeling that pressure, it's feeling that restriction, and then figuring it out, right? And that's what I love. So this is it's called Tokyo Digital Remix. I've already tweeted, I've posted on Instagram a little preview of the logo that we're going to be using for it. In the words of Hannibal from the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together. It's really coming together really nicely. And when we get about 5 episodes of it ready, we're going to launch it on Tokyo Digital Crew channel. I'll probably post a video on here to let people know where it is, to get the word out. But look out for it, because there is a cynical joke, but it's kind of true in YouTube circles, that is the success of videos tends to be exactly inversely proportional to the love and effort that you put into the video. And by that measure, no one's going to watch this. But you know, I don't even care, because it's so cool. And the thing about videos that are really cool is even when they don't go viral like you want them to when they launch, sometimes you come back to them a year later, you get disappointed, you walk away, you forget about it, you come back a year later and you realize the video's picked up momentum over a long period of time. Good videos will stand up, and this is something that's our next level, both what we're doing in the video and the way that we're making the video. So I'm really excited. It's just really motivating, and I'm blessed to be able to do it with Tai Nakamura, Fog, Mata Gaijinka. We're going to get Dean in hopefully later on. If you guys like it, we can expand it and do all sorts of more stuff with it. But we want to nail those first 5 episodes and get them really good. So that's really exciting that we are doing right now. And I'll tell you one funny thing with that as well. So the thing about like this and what's really exciting about it for me is I always goof around with my IK oscillator and actually do quite good stuff on it. But at the same time, when you have to remix, you got to push yourself to do other things. You got to figure out how to import samples. You got to manipulate the samples. You got to figure out how to get your stuff and mix it with the samples. And there's GarageBand, there's Beatmaker, there's apps to help you do that. Sometimes you got to figure out how to do things that you wouldn't normally do. And that's what's fun about it. It's like you're sitting there frustrated. It's like, geez, I really want to do this. I want to, a bit of a spoiler for Ty. I'm not going to give away too much information, but I wanted to change the tempo of one of his samples, stretch it or compress it. And I was trying, and you know what, even before that, I was just looking for how to import samples from iMachine into GarageBand on iPhone. And it was funny. I was looking for an explainer. I was Googling for how do I do this. And I found a couple of sites, and then I went to the explainer videos, which always have the screen thing, so that's better. And I found one video, and that wasn't on point. I went another video, and that wasn't it. And I found this other video, and this next video that I found was exactly what I wanted. It was step by step, really clear, showed the screen exactly. Here's where you get the file, here's how you save the file, here's how you copy the file, here's how you paste the file and import it into, step by step. And I was watching it thinking, wow, this is so good. This is a really clear, really easy to understand explanation. This is exactly what I need. This is a great video. And I looked down and I saw it's got 7,000 views and 96 likes and 2 dislikes. Really other people seem to think that's the same. They thought this is a great explainer video. And then I was listening to it more and I realized, that voice, it sounds a lot like Fog. He's got that sort of Yorkshire accent. He's got that sort of, it sounds a lot like Fog. So I scrolled down and to see who's this video by, and it was by Tokyo Digital Crew. I actually, 3 years ago, when I asked him, and a bunch of us put up little explainers about how to do what we do, and we posted them on the Tokyo Digital Crew YouTube channel, which we haven't posted a lot onto lately. And Fog did a bunch of these really fantastic explainers, and it's exactly like that. I looked at it. I didn't really do that workflow until now, although I looked at it when he posted it. And when I posted it, it turns out thousands of people have used it and found it was a really great explanation, which shows that what we've put up on there, it's kind of low key, but it's actually really helped the people that it's aimed at. I thought that was hilarious that it turned out to actually be from a channel that I'm the owner of, but that I share with the Tokyo Digital Crew. So there's a lot of good vibes and a lot of really good stuff with that. So, I should be really focusing all of my attention right now on my Gen TV, given that I've been working on it for 2 years, but I am really excited and psyched to also be working on the Tokyo Digital Crew project. And I don't know when it's going to be ready. I'm not going to commit to a deadline because we want to get this right. But it's really fun to be working on it. And Ty, the answer to your question is when I'm done editing episode 1, which, I'd be gunning for doing it probably within an hour or 2 more editing. I finished this show at about 11:30 Japan time, so maybe not tonight. But I could probably, if I could get, I was on a bit of a roll. I probably would have done it in another focused hour, but I'm not sure I'll be able to do that tonight. So we'll see. But the first episode's nearly done, and once that is done, I'm going to Canada. This is another big announcement, by the way. Sorry, it's all announcements so far. I'm going to Canada. I'm going to Vancouver for the Emperor's Abdication Golden Week special vacation this weekend. So from this Friday, I'm going to be in Canada for 7 days in Vancouver. We're going to be doing lots of day trips. The lad wanted to go, so looking forward to going to Canada for the first time. Given that I'm there with family, I probably will not be able to do meetups while I'm there, unfortunately, but yes, really looking forward to that. As a result, I will not be able to do the show next week, but I'll be back the week after next, but very much looking forward to that, and I will post on Facebook all of the adventures that we have there. So yes, Bald Billard's boy, Canada. I as a Kiwi, I feel affinities with Canadians. I meet them and they seem to be on a similar wavelength, which is kind of cool. So all of that said, let's get into the topics because we only have 40 minutes left, and as usual, Vancouver. DNH, I'm going to Canada just so I can stock up on butter and cheese. Damn straight. I'll tell you what, now that you mention it, although I've had poutine, I have friends from work who are from Toronto, one from Vancouver. And I tried poutine for the first time 6 months ago, and it was really good. I don't know if that's a thing in Vancouver, but yeah, and of course everyone tells me that the Asian food is very good in Vancouver, which I'm also looking forward to. But butter and cheese as well, no question. Maple syrup, I suppose I'm going to have, but looking forward to that. So the topics that we have, I haven't had a chance to organize the topics this week, but let's just go through and see what we've got. The first thing, I just thought this is interesting. This is based on 2015 and a projection of 2014 of the prefectures in Japan and the percentage of people living in that prefecture that will be living by themselves. And as you can see, in 2015, most prefectures, less than 30% of people, the white areas, live on their own, whereas the darker areas, and really only Tokyo, I think, is more than 40%, although the color is a little bit wrong there. I don't know what that's about, but yeah, in Tokyo there's a lot of people who live on their own, working by themselves and so on. But the projection is that in 2040, and this will be based mainly on an increase in elderly people, a good number of prefectures, Tokyo, Yokohama, most of the Kansai, most of Kyushu, and it shows there's going to be probably a lot of elderly people. Hokkaido as well. I mean, it's kind of crazy that these will going to have a majority of households will only have one people living in them. It shows what a transformation the society is going through. I do feel like about this that I do not like to talk in terms of generations. I think it's cliched, and I think it's a stupid way to generalize about people. But having said that, as a Gen Xer, I do feel like people older than me use the internet, went on the internet, but were kind of awkward with it from the beginning. As someone who's kind of comfortable with the internet and realizing the people coming after are basically babies born on the internet, in terms of where things are going now. But I think it will make a really big difference to when you're elderly and you become less mobile. It's probably going to change the internet itself quite a lot, but at least the idea of being stuck alone. I mean, I know people from my grandmother's generation who, when they lost their mobility, they would be stuck at home watching TV, and my grandma herself would say that's what they would develop Alzheimer's just from lack of using their brains, from lack of being able to do anything. I think it'll be different. I hope for us when I am an elderly person at that in 2040. I think. Obviously, I'm sitting here in a room by myself right now, and I'm interacting with all of you, which is something that probably my parents' generation, certainly my grandparents' generation, probably can't imagine doing. And it'll be even more comfortable and different for people after us. I think we'll be full. What's that Black Mirror episode of the of that island that elderly people go to? But it'll be, I'm sure it'll be fully like that. So I don't think it's fully dystopian, but at the same time, it shows the challenges of a society where. Not only will it be overwhelmingly elderly, but with people living on their own, figuring out how to allow these people to look after themselves, how to look after these people. How do you find them if they pass away, or if they're living by their own, or what if they fall down and they need help? I mean, a lot of big challenges coming through. Andrea Moboy, Blackadder. I'm trying to think of what the Blackadder reference would be, but I have endless Blackadder references if you want them, but I do like the one where a different version of this map. There's a Blackadder 2 where Baldrick produces a map which has Ireland being bigger than America, Europe, and Africa combined, and he asks Baldrick, "Where did you get this map?" I think it was Ireland, my lord. But that sort of thing, yes. I digress, and we don't have much time, so I will continue. The Ballad of Narayama. I do not know what that is, but anyway, let's go on. So there's a tax system is changing that if you are buying stuff in a convenience store with the new increases to the sales tax, apparently if you are there's an exemption from the sales tax for things that if you are buying them and carrying them out of the shop. In fact, let's get the exact explanation here from Sora News, which is always good for explaining the sort of stuff. So yes, the sales tax rate is due to go up to 10%, in fact, in October this year. I don't like having 8 yen added on to everything for the 8%. I don't like having 1 yen coins. But yes, apparently, if you... Right, it costs an extra 2%. So okay, they get to keep it at 8%. If you buy a pocky or a coffee in a convenience store, they'll charge 8% tax. But if you plan to stay in the sometimes have a little sit down area in these convenience stores, if you're going to have it there in the convenience store and you tell them that you're going to do that, they have to charge you an extra 2% tax. which is kind of ridiculous. But apparently the convenience stores have decided that they will adopt an honesty system where if you tell them that you're going to eat it in the shop, where they allow those facilities to be, you will have to tell them, they will rely on your honesty to tell them that you're going to do that, and you will owe them an extra 2%. Otherwise, if you do not say that, you'll get it cheaper. So apparently the honesty box system is going to be how the new tax system is going to work. And GST actually in New Zealand works a lot more simply than in Australia. In Australia, it's very political about the different exceptions and so on, and Japan is the same. In New Zealand, GST is flat. It is on everything. There's no categories like the whole thing in Australia about women's health products being whether it should be GST exempt or not, and the consistency and inconsistency with other exemptions given. In New Zealand, there's no exemptions, which actually makes it very simple, because otherwise you end up like with a system like in Japan, that if you run a small shop, you need a phone book sized manual just to figure out which taxes apply to what. So yeah, outside the convenience store, no. If you carry it out of the convenience store, you don't have to pay the extra tax. But it's actually pretty common for a lot of convenience stores that they'll have a sit-down area where you can have a coffee, you can charge your phone, you can read a newspaper or whatever, and it's actually very convenient. And it's kind of stupid that they're going to have the system where they're going to have differentiated tax for whether you sit down there or not. It's silly. But yes, that is something that is happening. Now there was an NHK feature that was featured on Hatena Bookmarks, which talks about, basically it features the kind of hardships of Kikoku Shijo, which are returnees, people who lived overseas and returned to Japan, like basically Japanese who were expat Japanese in other countries for a time, or born in other countries sometimes, although technically born in other countries would be more Nikkei, people of Japanese ancestry, as opposed to Kikoku Shijo that are people who have gone away and come back again. But Japanese culture being kind of tough, for a lot of kids when they come back, it can be very hard for them to fit in, and and there's some funny ideas about what these kids are like, and so it features the story of a kid who was in Canada and basically came to Japan and was half, and where was this? I mean, the story sounds pretty horrible. I remember flicking through it and thinking, this wasn't in Tokyo, was it? So she regrets coming back to Japan from Canada. People wouldn't talk to her or whatever. The hardships of both being half and a returnee. It doesn't say what part of Japan they live in. Maybe it's in here somewhere, but certainly it's probably less likely to be problematic in Tokyo than in other places. But there again, kids are kids, and kids can just be dicks sometimes. Perhaps on a more light-hearted version of this, they call it returnee here for Kikoku Shijo. One of the writers here, this is funny, 30 different ways that people react to in Japan to people coming who have lived overseas, like in America. Apparently there's a writer at Sora News who lived in America till they were 9 years old, and even in spite of that, since they come back, they get listed up their sort of comments, and this is something that gaijins can relate to as well, but it's quite funny. So for example, people always tell me, say something in English, come on, just say anything. And so then he'll say Japan, and then they get annoyed because they want you to say someone else. So then they'll say United States of America, and then they'll go, wow, and they'll sit silently. I kind of like that. The teacher in school, even though would basically always, when no one would put up their hand, would always make that person answer as if they were the assistant. I used to get that in New Zealand, in Australia, as the only New Zealander in the class when we did Polynesian myths like Moana, those kind of stories. It was assumed that I knew how to pronounce all the names because I was from New Zealand. Problem is, I hadn't grown up in New Zealand when I lived in Australia, so I was making up the pronunciations and they were all wrong. Sorry, New Zealand mythology. I learned it later, but yes, so I can relate to being put in that chair as the appointed expert on all things from something, even though you have no real entitlement to be. When the person who lived in America till they were 9 says that they're not good at English, people get upset with them. When they go to karaoke, people expect them to sing all the English lyric sections, even though they're really tough, which is true. People asking you, even though you lived in America, your personality isn't wild at all. People ask you, so when you lived in America, did you have a gun? Did you fire a gun? The person points out they were 9 years old. Did anyone ever point a gun at you? No, you were 9. Did you ever get a tattoo? You were 9. Did you ever take any drugs? I was 9. With America still, I think you could ask the question. Did you ever have a blonde girlfriend? No, sadly. But these kind of, I guess, kids who live overseas in any situation get these kinds of questions. But it's actually this is a great article. So Sword News is great to follow, and I found this is a light-hearted view. The NHK is a bit of a heavier version of what it is like. Mr. Korichep, so what's the Maori name for New Zealand? The Maori name for New Zealand is Aotearoa. But I probably couldn't have told you that before I was 9 years old. I just hadn't lived there and back. Again, there's been a bit of a renaissance of awareness and appreciation of Maori culture that didn't exist when I was a kid. I'm really glad that it's changed. But yeah, we used to take Maori lessons. We used to sing songs over there and whatnot. So yes. Andy DeVirgo, I will approve that, but fellow morons, Victor Spirit just took me there for a second. I don't know what that means. Pineapple lumps. Yes, pineapple lumps. I see that you people understand some stuff about New Zealand. Good evening, Andy DeVirgo. Good to have you. Other news. Basically, with the upcoming casino law in Japan, if you're into casinos, Japan is about to have good record translation lessons about the treaty. Well, I had to spend a lot of time at law school going through the translation issues with the Treaty of Waitangi. I'd be happy to do an episode on that, but today I'm going to stick to the Japanese topics. If we have time at the end, I would love to. Actually, if you guys want to seriously hear about New Zealand, I would love to enlighten, but but what can we do? So for example, coming back, The Rock played Maui in Moana, and Maui, I guess even Americans know Maui because you have an island in Hawaii named after them. And Maui in New Zealand mythology fished up the North Island and with its brothers. It was a big fish, and the South was a canoe that Maui rode in. He was a really big person. So actually, but again, when they asked me as an 8-year-old who had never really lived in New Zealand except for 2 years how to pronounce Maui, I was like, oh, it's Maui. It was terrible. So yes, I learned my lessons. Anyway, coming back to the Japan news. Japan's having casinos coming up, and part of the concern about making sure there's proper laws and regulations around legalizing gambling, and the concerns about, for example, allowing funding for gambling addicts and support for gambling addiction. And the normal things that you have in most countries with casinos is you have the ability of families to create a register that the casinos have to follow, where if you have an gambling addicted family member, you can say, please do not let Uncle Bob go into the casino, and you can put them on lists. And it's been pointed out, if we're going to do that, we should do that for Pachinko as well, because there are, even though gambling is currently illegal in Japan, there are, of course, something like 3 million diagnosed addicted gambling addicts who all play Pachinko. And every year it's horrible. In summertime there are deaths of children left in cars while their parents are in playing Pachinko. There is a kind of a myth of these pro Pachinko players who can make a living by being very clever about how they play Pachinko, traveling around, catching the new shops and so on. But it's also reinforced the idea of these people who go around and basically ruin their lives, giving all their money to Pachinko parlors. So 70 years too late. This has been allowed to go on for 70 years for reasons that I've been through before on this show, but basically a combination of the Pachinko businesses were often affiliated with organized crime. They paid a lot of money to politicians and police to make sure that they were not regulated. There were also the organized crime syndicates that tended to run them tended to be associated with North and South Korea, and there was general sympathy among many people for those populations within Japan, which meant that it was sort of seen as being when the police would try to talk about, or politicians would talk about cracking down on Pachinko, they'd be criticized for being racist or bullying minorities, and they would back off. The Korean government itself has asked Japan not to crack down on Pachinko, even though in Korea they've cracked down on Pachinko. But yes, 70 years too late, they're finally introducing a law which would actually allow people with family members who are Pachinko gambling addicts to actually create a register where they could stop their addicted parents going into the Pachinko parlors. So that is a good thing. Anyway, and Nyanko, good to have you there. Maybe silly question, but is Pachinko illegal for foreign visitors as well? Well, good news is Pachinko is not illegal. It should be illegal, but everyone adopts a reading of the law that because you don't collect your prize money directly in the Pachinko parlor, you get it like a token that you can take around the corner to a tuck shop. And so long as you're collecting your money from a separate building on a separate premises, the police say that they're not going to raid them because they won't consider that gambling. You're only winning a plastic trophy in the shop, which sounds very clever, but if you ever wanted to open up a regular casino or mahjong and set it up with the same thing, where you would plastic tokens and you go around the corner and cash in your chips at a shop around the corner, you would get arrested for that. You don't get arrested for it for pachinko. So it's legal. You can go in and do it, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be legal. What else have we got? We've got. Oh yeah, so there's been an interesting news story this week. So people were talking about, with the new construction worker visas coming in, all of the companies doing the cleanup, the pollution cleanup work around Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant have been using, primarily it's construction companies that get the main contracts, and they typically subcontract to dodgy, sometimes mob affiliated and unregulated and smaller companies, which have, it's turned out, been using foreign laborers, even though technically there have been no construction worker visas, so it's always basically cash paid or sort of, dodgy sort of construction companies that use them. But it has come to light that some of these companies have basically, who have been using like ex-cons, basically people who couldn't get jobs, other sorts of jobs, sort of like the last ditch sort of jobs that people can get, are these sort of dangerous and dirty sort of construction jobs, and some foreigners get these. But there's been a desire from the construction companies to be able to use construction workers, and including to use them in the sort of work that is hard to get Japanese people to do, like the pollution cleanup around the nuclear wastes, the fallout cleanup around Fukushima. So when they started the new visa system, there was people making commentary that yes, doors are now open, that you can now, that Japanese companies can employ foreigners to support the cleanup at Fukushima Daiichi. And everyone was joking, well, that's a job people are going to be queuing up for, applying for the Japan visa to come and clean up nuclear radioactive waste. However, the Justice Minister actually clarified yesterday that no, that would not actually be allowed. The construction worker visa that they have is specifically only allowed for skilled construction work, not for like rubbish disposal. And if that was the substance of the work that they would be doing, they wouldn't be granted a visa. So it kind of shows the mentality that although yes, they are expanding the categories of visa that you can come to Japan on, it really is still, the mentality is, it's to get work done that basically, well, certainly where there are shortages, but also frankly that Japanese just don't want to do, and they're hoping they can get rid of by low-cost labor as a substitute for eventually probably wanting to get robots. But yes, you can't treat people like robots, and this is the thing. They've got legal rights. You got to pay them their salaries. You can't withhold their passports. Like this whole apprentice visa's been abused to hell with. And the idea that we're just going to make them go clean up the nuclear waste. No, you can't fix that problem by basically treating humans like they're not humans. And thank heavens the Justice Minister affirmed that. Speaking of treating people properly, we've talked about this before. The Ainu people recently got recognized in law for the first time as indigenous people to Japan. When I posted this post, and I just retweeted it from NHK in Japanese, there were two things actually. First thing is there's two things that the Ainu got from this law. First, it was the first ever formal legal recognition that they are indigenous and pre-existing indigenous people to Japan, to modern day Japanese. And second, it promised funding to basically groups to support Ainu culture and activities. This is the sort of thing that happened in Wales. It's happened in Ireland. It's happened in New Zealand. To support, to the culture that is an endemic culture that, for historical reasons has been suppressed. And when it's about to die out, you realize, we shouldn't let it die out. This is actually something we should protect and preserve. And it looks like Japan's kind of come to that stage as well with the Ainu people, so it's a very, very good thing. It's very, very similar to the situation with Maori in New Zealand. There are politicians who claim Ainu heritage. The thing is that Japan doesn't really track ethnic difference. People talk about how Japan is homogenous, and you can say, well, no, there are Ainu and Okinawans, and you can say, yeah, there are, but really, Ainu, Okinawans, like very, and Japanese citizens of Korean heritage who have naturalized or whatever, you still amount to probably less than 5% of the population. So you'd still say 95%. The same ethnicity, so it may be based on that. Unlike America or New Zealand, where you track the ethnicity, whether you're Polynesian or Latin American or African heritage or whatever, and people track statistics and separate people quite a lot by in different sort of ways. Japan's never done that, and within that, they've never really afforded positive recognition toward Ainu people. Ainu were effectively, when the capital of Japan was in Kyoto, parts of not just Hokkaido, but actually parts of even northern Kanto, all the way down, apparently at a time, all the way back down to Shizuoka and Mount Fuji. That land was not actually controlled by modern Japanese until a few hundred years ago. It was actually controlled by Ainu people, and it was basically just through weight of numbers, superior technology, superior military tactics and aggression. They basically were able to displace and push back, and one would assume assimilate Ainu as they moved north over time, and it took hundreds of years. And it wasn't until Meiji that they sort of created the final reserves and the final sort of battles with Ainu people, where basically you could say the conquest of the current Japanese islands was completed, and Ainu at that time, under the Meiji period, under a law integrating them, were integrated, and it was actually done deliberately under the law that they would not be recorded or treated or tracked as being separate. People who lived in those towns would know that they're Ainu people or that they have Ainu heritage, and discrimination does apparently still happen. But essentially speaking, Meiji declared that everyone are Japanese, which in some ways, there are parallels to what happened in North America. They were put into reservations, but at the same time, you could say that the kind of withholding of legal rights that happened in places like Australia and North America didn't necessarily happen. I mean, they had their property taken away from them, like in those countries, but they were given full citizenship and full regular rights, basically saying, hey, look, you're all just Japanese now, congratulations. Which, it was never quite that straightforward with white people conquering, countries like New Zealand. That said, however, there are people who have preserved an Ainu language and identity, a very small number of people now. But, I saw some Japanese people reacting when I posted this on Twitter, saying, well, why do they get all the special recognition? Why, if we do that, we're going to have to recognize Okinawans and Koreans and Chinese as well. And I'd say, this kind of points out to me that the story is still kind of different. The situation with Ainu is that these people were in Japan before Japan was Japan, as opposed to Okinawa, which was an independent kingdom outside of Japan, which was integrated into Japan through annexation. Koreans and Chinese, who were conquered at one time, and many people who immigrated voluntarily and involuntarily to Japan. It's a different situation to the people, and indigenous rights, typically you're dealing with a situation of having land and property and sovereignty displaced. So it's kind of inherent, again, coming from New Zealand. This is something where, for example, even in America, the sufferings and injustices that black people have experienced as slaves are different. Not talking about equality or anything, but the claims that indigenous Americans have that, hey, this was my land, this was my property, and you took it and give it back to me or give me compensation for it, is different to the claims that ancestors of slaves might have, that, your great-grandfather became very, very rich off abusing and using my grandfather's labor all of his life, and my family's impoverished and your family's rich, and we never got restitution from you, and frankly your wealth is off the back of my ancestors, so you've got to figure out how to compensate for that work that was done. Those are two very, very different sorts of claims, particularly in a situation where, for example, in many places in New Zealand and America there's recognized treaties of sovereignty. So in Japan as well, the right of Ainu to exist as a component of Japanese identity, I think it's actually really exciting. It's a journey that we've been through, going from ignoring to discrimination, to ignoring and conquest, to coming to terms with it. It's a great curve to go through. It's something that I've seen really happen in a really positive way in New Zealand in my lifetime. Not to say that everything is anywhere near fixed. Australia's still trying to get started with it, but I think it's always nice when you can sort of recognize people, and it's a good step for Japan. So congratulations, Japan, on that. Yasashi89, good to see you, and good to see other people dropping into the comments. And sorry I haven't been paying attention, but please remember at @me_Hikozaimon in the comments, and I will pay attention and I will respond to whatever you are saying. But in any case, Dan H asking, didn't Okinawa have closer links to the Chinese Empire than Japan? Yeah, it's an interesting question. The Chinese have expressed the view that is the case. Okinawa was like Korea. It was a vassal state, and there are Chinese who claim that Okinawa and Korea were part of China, and that upsets a lot of Korean nationalists a lot, who maintain it was an independent kingdom that paid protection money. probably the best description of Okinawa and Korea was like they were a little bit like Philippines and America. They were kind of like de facto Chinese colonies, but China didn't want to say that they were part of China. They were happy just to collect money and basically have a say in everything that happened there. And Japan's ties with Okinawa, Japan's maintained that it always did have close ties with Okinawa, and it was during the time that China was weakened that it basically came out of the closet that actually would have been friends all along. But certainly because of the fear of upsetting China, Japan always sort of kept that very, that was very low key, the support that they did for, that they paid. Their links with Okinawa were sort of back channel and so on. And certainly within Okinawa, I mean, the fact is Okinawa was an independent kingdom and it had to play off all of its neighbors. Taiwan, Formosa, which was most of the time outside of China's control, China itself, Japan, I mean, arguably even Korea. So, Okinawa has a fascinating history, but the idea that their situation, again, as what you could call an annexed or a conquered territory is different again to the situation, and also made even more unique by the fact that, of course, they were independent from Japan under the US occupation until 1975. So Okinawa is a fascinating case. And day and age, you think the best term for it would be tributaries. Well, certainly tribute paying kingdoms is what they'd call them. Hey, Andrea Mobwe, have a good night, and thank you for watching again. I know it's late for you. What else have we got here? Pioneer. I like Pioneer. They make great DJ equipment and sound equipment, of course, car stereos and whatnot, but again, sign of the times. They have, in Japan, it's basically impossible to do mass layoffs, but you can offer packages and incentives for people to voluntarily leave. And this is what has happened. 700 people are voluntarily taking termination packages from Pioneer, which says that they're basically in a bad way, and probably they're trying to prepare themselves for acquisition. In fact, typically, you'll do an acquisition and you'll try to pass the problems off to the acquiring company, but a smart acquiring company, particularly foreign ones that understand the situation in Japan, will say, well, I don't want to inherit your issue of what to do with laying off employees, so you're going to resolve that before we'll buy you, and that's probably what's happening. And again, that'll be factored into the pricing of whatever deal is likely to happen, but it's a sign that, well, either Pioneer is about to collapse or it's about to be bought. But it's a shame. I mean, it's a great company, and I do hope that Pioneer does figure out a way to recover and continue. That's the story I mentioned before about how difficult it can be for Japanese returning from living overseas. It was the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre this week. So again, 1989, I mean, that was such a huge year, wasn't it, when the Berlin Wall came down, Eastern Europe became free, and it looked like for a time, yes, Pioneer is Japanese. It looked for a time like China was going to follow that as well, and of course thousands of students piled into Tiananmen Square for peaceful protests. As we all know, those protests ended when troops surrounded the square and basically started shooting and running over people with tanks. Conservative estimates are hundreds, conflicting accounts, because basically the square was sealed off with thousands of people in it. Gunshots and tanks were heard. There were photos and accounts of tanks being used to run people over. Basically, thousands of people disappeared. The death toll is known to be at least 400, and it's probably thousands. And it shows that the Chinese government was willing to massacre its own people in order to keep power, which again kind of goes to show the regime that you're dealing with over there, and that regime change isn't really something that's likely to happen no matter what else happens in China. However, every year, of course, any mention of the Tiananmen Square massacre, there's no information made available in China, because of course it would undermine the legitimacy of the regime there, as it should. I mean, the people who ordered the massacre of thousands of Chinese students, again, if they had democracy there, they would probably end up on criminal trial. So, of course, mentions of the massacre are done, and people. I love the one where people would Photoshop this photo of the person standing in front of all the tanks with rubber ducks, and then rubber ducks became banned on Chinese social media. Apparently, this year it was Leica doing famous moments in photographic news history included this photo, which wasn't taken with a Leica camera. I think someone mentions their day and age. But they just used this shot in the campaign, and as a result, the word Leica has now been banned from social media in China. Shows the sensitivity, I mean, between Winnie the Pooh and rubber ducks and Lakers. I mean, and this is because, I mean, it's rubber ducks, but it's rubber ducks that, frankly, again, if there was ever accountability for the people of power in China, they wouldn't survive it. So this is them trying to save their own lives by banning rubber ducks and Lakers now, which is absolutely ridiculous. And again, I would hope for the sake of China that there is some freedom there one day. And certainly when I've been into China, people can and do talk freely. I think they're actually much more independent culturally. Chinese have a greater sense of individuality, I think, than people do in Japan. So it's kind of contradictory that they are a communist state in some ways, but of course the government there manages a billion-person population by being very, very heavy-handed. There are 1 million people in concentration camps in Xinjiang right now. And yeah, they ban the word Laker. I mean, that's how sensitive it is, which is silly, but it goes to show if you ever go over there, as I would, also just got to be very careful. Especially right now when they're rounding up, foreigners that are just from countries that are annoying them, like Canadians getting picked on right now. So there you go. Dan H, why don't you put Mao's face on it? They can't ban. Well, I'm pretty sure they could if it was on something saying that he was responsible. But yes, I don't know. That is a good. Well, no, I wouldn't want to go there. I wouldn't suggest messing with that in any way, unless you're absolutely sure that you were never going to go to China. So yeah, this is just interesting from social media perspective that Instagram has been experimenting with taking away where you can have likes, but you won't. But other people will not be able to see the likes on your photos, only you. So it's a bit like stories, and it's something I posted my first story the other day. Actually, I took a GoPro along to kickboxing. I downloaded the video, and I actually caught myself spraining my own toe, which wasn't exactly what I was planning to post. It wasn't so great. I was planning to actually try to be good. Oh crap! I just realized I was supposed to be at a boxing event tonight. I just realized that. I've just been so busy today. I just forgot that I was going to go watch my trainer actually take the and I paid for the ticket. Damn it. It's just my son had friends over, then I had to go get dinner, then I had to go. I totally forgot about that. I was going to go watch my trainer actually go for a world kickboxing title one station away. Well, that sucked. Well, never mind. But yes, anyway, I had to take a video of myself, which is probably much less impressive than my trainer going for a world title match. I would have probably missed this video. That is a whoops. Too much going on. Yes, so I'm late to the show. It shows my age that I'm so behind on things like Instagram stories. But I do like this idea that you can't really tell what people are commenting and how many likes you've got, just the person posting it. There's an experiment going on Instagram and maybe other things. It's a good idea that it takes away this whole idea, this whole incentive to game, to have people, paying people for likes and stuff like that. If you just make it not visible to everybody. It's an interesting take that you can see that you get them, you can receive likes, and you can see how many you got, but you don't need to actually, this idea of trying to show that you got 1 million likes on something to everyone else has got. Damn, it just hit me. I got the ticket and I just totally forgot today. That was crazy. Mr. Cordy Chet, well, it's basically Black Mirror, right? The social credit thing. That episode as well, I do love that episode. Oh, it's so awkward, that episode Downfall. It's not a fun episode to watch, although there are much harder episodes to watch in Black Mirror, but essentially the concept of what it's talking about is, yes, it's like somebody saw that and they thought, gee, that looks like a good idea. What else have we got? We've got Yasuhiro Mori. He is resigning as head of the Japanese Rugby Football Union. He's 87 years old. He should have resigned 40 years ago, and he's basically sabotaged the attempt of the Japanese team in Super Rugby to be successful. Decided to rebuild the only good rugby stadium in Japan at the same time that they're having the Rugby World Cup. When they had a rugby match at the Kokuritsu Kyogijo, they brought 5 kegs of beer to sell. 5 kegs of beer. All the beer was sold out way before the kickoff. And everyone was sort of outraged, but basically couldn't organize the proverbial in the proverbial. And he's rugby in Japan has progressed in many ways during his time, but it would be impossible for it not to have, because he's been in charge of it for 40 years, and I would say he's done more to hold it back. And he was a terrible prime minister, he's a terrible head of the Olympics, and he's not done great things for rugby, and he wants to make way for motivated young people, and don't let the door hit you on the way out. Good to see that he's going. BBC had a story. You'll be surprised about this very surprising news that they've changed the name of it now, the surprising trend. And the actual thing that I had was the men leading Japan's surprising sex recession. Please, are you doing this again? I mean, I don't get it. In Japan, are we buying, used panties out of vending machines, and screwing anime pillows, or are we having a sex recession and we've lost interest? I don't understand. But thank you for another cliche, stereotype, lazy story. BBC, and perhaps we'll do a feature on English cooking and crooked teeth. I don't know. It should be just as wrong. It would be just as stupid. But what can you do? For the first time right now, apparently 1 in 5 people in Japan are age 70 years or older. So that is a thing. I'm so bummed. I probably would have missed this show, actually. So it's a good thing I forgot, in a way. And I've just been... And you know what? I was going so crazy editing the Tokyo Digital Crew video when basically we got my son to bed. But that's right. I had to go and get dinner before that. So I just all day, I totally forgot that I had a ticket to go watch a kickboxing world champion title match. I was really looking forward to that. It would have been fun. Damn it. Oh, I've got to go find a recording of it. Yeah, I'm bummed out. Okay, speaking of being bummed out, back to the news. There was another story yesterday. Depressing. I don't typically do crime and accident stories, but this is just an increasingly typical case in Japan, where an elderly person, 87 years old, former high-ranking government bureaucrat and company president, was driving a Toyota Prius in Ikebukuro. Suddenly his car accelerated wildly out of control, went up on the footpath, ran a whole bunch of people over, killed a mum and their 3-year-old child. When pulled out of the car, apparently said, the car just accelerated all by itself, but apparently recently had been talking with other people about the fact that he felt himself he couldn't control the car very well anymore, and that he should give up his own driver's license, and he was considering it. And this is just the kind of thing that it's just, and on the one hand you'd say, a lot of people are saying this is another case of elderly, causing damage to society, and these sort of accidents are happening more and more in Japan. So you're saying make them give up their driver's licenses, but by the other token, when you live in rural parts of Japan where there's no public transport, your whole life is gone if you your whole life is gone if you don't have a car. You can't live without them, which is why in Japan we really cannot have self-driving cars fast enough. Quid Ranked, thank you for the commentary. So yes. Anyway, so basically the need that's been felt at a pretty high level by car companies and by government to try to get to the place where we have self-driving cars available to allow basically people to have mobility without the need to drive themselves, especially when they get old. It's something that Japan really needs, and that's driving the motivation, I think, to try to get there. That is me at the YouTube space setting up the camera, and everything looks really great except for that little wire hanging down, which is just generating a lot of static. So I will ask for the Tokyo Digital Crew's help cleaning that up. But yes, we got some really great video and we got some great episodes. I look forward to another Japan Business Time coming really soon. That was also me setting up, so it'll look pretty good. And it's got a lot of reactions on Twitter. I posted that a school in Japan was actually creating a rule that they will they demand that all students have to turn over all of their social media handle names, and they will be tracked by the school. And if the school finds that they are using undeclared social media, they can be suspended. And I guess that must have got forwarded among high school students in other countries who said, whoa, Japan's a fascist state, which I guess it probably is if you're a high school student. And it strikes me as a ridiculous rule. There are a lot of countries that require this as well. Had hundreds of retweets, actually, not hundreds, but dozens of retweets, and people talking about don't they know what a burner account is and all that sort of stuff. But seems heavy-handed. But again, this is what schools are doing, and if kids have no rights, it seems is the same pretty much everywhere. A warning to everybody: if you are in Japan, you think it'd be a really good idea to record TV shows, do your own fan dubs of anime, and put it onto BitTorrent. Someone from Korea did that recently, and they had to pay 1.8 billion yen, which translate as 100 million yen is $1 million, so 1.8 billion yen would be $18 million, had to pay damages $18 million based on the number of downloads. I think that's right. They estimated the count of being 70,000 downloads, equating to $16 million. If you do the math, it's basically charging hundreds of dollars for each download. And the 29-year-old person said he just wanted to share. Yeah, the police are actually cracking down on this. They're being pressured by the publishing industry to do it. It's kind of popular, obviously, to make Japanese anime and so on available. But yes, you know, if you're in Japan and you think about doing that, that person's life is now ruined. So there you go. And that's the show. Did I mention this last week that Sumo wants to attend that Trump wants to attend a sumo tournament, which, based on his behavior of WWE wrestling events, you know, the most sacred thing of the sumo wrestler is the old mage that they have. When they retire, they do a mage cutting ceremony, which signifies his end as a sumo wrestler. So I think coming out with the hair clippers and shaving the head like Trump did of Ed McMahon, I think someone should brief him that that's not a good thing to do. And it's definitely not pro wrestling. The other thing is that he also wants to present the trophy at the end of the May tournament, which would be kind of, you could see how he would, given that women are still prohibited from ending the dohyo, and this is still something very controversial about the sexism, which the Japanese has linked to tradition and sort of folk religion in sumo, that no, women are not allowed onto the ring, but men are. So male mares can, but female mares are not allowed to present trophies, even when the mare traditionally does. You can imagine Trump presenting a trophy and then going back to America and saying Hillary couldn't have done that. So who knows? I mean, there again, I mean, given that it is a religious spot, as Tony Asianing says, it could be just a convenient place for a lightning strike. Who knows? I must admit, he would enjoy it. He's a wrestling fan. If it gets us more butter, I'm all for it. So I say let the man have his maseki and teach him about throwing the things. Do not allow him to shave the heads of the wrestlers, and we should all be good. And that is the end of the show. Mr. Cordy Chip, I do not have the ability to throw lightning bolts, so it's all good. I think I'm okay. So that is the show. I thought if I had some spare time, I'm 10 minutes over. I thought I might play a track, but I will do that probably week after next. I'll be in Canada next week, as I said. I'll be in Vancouver, enjoying the wonderful, slightly cooler weather they're having over there right now. And I will be back. Look out for more updates on Japan Business Time on MyChan TV, which has now gone fully live and Pro is available. And for of course, Tokyo Digital Crew and what we're doing with Tokyo Digital Remix, which is probably going to be a couple of months away from coming out, but look out for it because it's super fun and good working with you all in the crew. I will have maple syrup and it will be a lot of fun. I will see you all again soon. Remember to like the video if you like the video, because that shows me that people like it. I like poutine. I've had it once and I really liked it, so I'm going to go looking for more of that. So have a good Golden Week, everybody. Happy Easter for those of you that do Easter. We don't do Easter in Japan. My mum called me today and said Happy Easter, and I was like, oh, is it Easter now? I had no idea. So happy Easter if that's your thing. Have a good week, everybody. Have a good Golden Week if you're in Japan, and see you after Golden Week, week after next. I'm going to go find out if my trainer is a world champion now or not. It's kind of awkward. Damn. Well, I'm glad I spent it here with you instead anyway. Have a good one, everybody. Peace. Okay. I'm going to turn this thing off. How do we stop? Ride a moose and eat poutine. I will do that. I will do that to the Asian. Thank you. Have a good week.